I was daydreaming during a boring meeting, scrolling through messages from my online boyfriend when I accidentally hit the boys' call button, unexpectedly. The next second, my boss's phone started ringing in the conference room. My coworker was nervously presenting when the ringtone startled him so badly he dropped his pen. Everyone froze. I watched as Mark, our CEO, calmly glanced at his screen and declined the call.
Sorry.
Please continue, he said smoothly, looking down at his phone. I saw my call had been rejected. Coincidence? It had to be a coincidence. There's no way my cold-blooded, emotionless boss could possibly be the same person as my sweet, adorable, puppy-like boyfriend. I secretly sighed with relief. My coworker finished his presentation and waited anxiously for Mark's feedback. Mark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Whose idea was this proposal? It was our manager, Greg. My coworker quickly replied, trying to score points with the boss. Greg immediately smiled and took credit. Yes, I provided the framework for them. What complete nonsense. Greg technically oversaw our department, but he only ever showed up for team dinners and never paid his share. His only contribution to this proposal had been suggesting we change the font size from 4 to 3, claiming it would make the proposal look more impressive. And yes, it was impressive. As impressive as Greg's beer belly. Everyone watched as Mark's lips curved into a faint smile. We all relaxed, thinking the proposal had passed. Then suddenly, Mark tossed the file back in front of Greg. Look at the garbage you provided, he said coldly. Disorganized thinking, irrelevant references. I can't even understand the main concept. Your framework is quite something. The entire conference room went silent. Nobody dared to breathe. Everyone knew our boss was unpredictable. His smile didn't necessarily mean approval, and his stern face didn't always mean criticism. This was a perfect example. I reassured myself, my sweet boyfriend could never be like this man. It was definitely just a coincidence. Greg's face darkened. I just gave them a basic framework. They did everything else. He glared at the coworker who had tried to flatter him. Mark's eyes narrowed. Is that so? Then who did the data analysis? My coworker immediately threw me under the bus. Olivia did it. My blood froze. But he wasn't wrong. I had done it. Slowly, I stood. 2 weeks of late nights and exhausting research had gone into that analysis.
Was it still not enough for the CEO?
During those stressful weeks, the only thing that kept me going was my boyfriend's encouragement. Greg quickly changed his tune. Mr. Reynolds, that data analysis is the most critical part of the proposal. I told them not to let her handle it. How could a young girl deal with something so complex? You did this yourself? Mark asked, expressionless. Yes, I answered firmly. After all, it was 2 weeks of my hard work. I had nothing to be ashamed of. Not bad, he said. This data analysis is the only decent part of the entire proposal. My eyes widened. Olivia, right? You should join Team 2 to handle their data analysis. Team 3 isn't right for you. He looked at me, his light brown eyes glinting. Oh, okay, I stammered. Meeting adjourned. Even after leaving the conference room, I was still in shock. Team 2 was personally led by Mark himself and was working on a major project. Being on Team 2 was practically like becoming the CEO's trusted employee. Promotions and raises were all but guaranteed. Back at my desk, my phone buzzed. My boyfriend had replied. Sorry, baby, I was in a meeting so I couldn't take your call. Are you free now? Can we call?
Didn't you say you had an important meeting?
How did it go? Another message followed. It's your daily bubble tea time. Let me order one for you. Then came a flood of cat memes. Someone this cute couldn't possibly be Mark. Definitely a coincidence. Seeing his messages instantly brightened my mood. Meeting's over. Successfully defeated the big boss, and he's even giving me a promotion and raise, I replied, adding a cat meme of my own. Baby, you're amazing. What do you want to eat? I'll order it for you. We need to celebrate. Still delivering to Century Garden? At first, I hadn't wanted to share my address for safety reasons, so I had given him the name of an apartment complex near my office. Hold on, I need to pack up my things first. I'll get back to you. Sure thing, baby. Take care of yourself. More cat memes followed. How could anyone resist a guy like this? I gathered my things. Team 2's leader, Mark's college friend and right-hand man, had personally come to escort me to my new workstation. I didn't want to keep him waiting, so after a short exchange, I told him to go ahead. That was when Greg came over, his face twisted with malice. I knew a girl like you couldn't produce an analysis that would impress the CEO. Who's backing you up? Watch your mouth. I snapped. Getting defensive? Since you've already got your promotion and raise, why not share a few tips with your old colleagues? He smirked, reaching for my arm. I recoiled instantly, almost making his bulky frame lose balance. Greg, you're not only physically repulsive, you're morally disgusting. I packed faster. Around us, other team members snickered, recording the scene. Olivia, be realistic, Greg sneered. Getting cozy with team leader James, or with me, could get you the same benefits. Why not consider it? That revolting smile was the last straw. I grabbed the nearest cushion and threw it straight at his face.
He froze, stunned.
You dare throw things at me? Greg charged forward, his massive frame barreling toward me. I grabbed whatever was in reach and hurled it, knocking down someone's phone, sending my coffee mug flying. Chaos erupted. What's going on here? The Team 2 leader returned just in time, stepping into the commotion. This morning I had been promoted. Now, by the afternoon, I was being sent to the CEO's office for fighting. Team 3 was dragged in with me. Everyone who had jeered moments ago now sat frozen, terrified. Everyone except Greg. Mr. Reynolds, it's all Olivia's fault, Greg shouted. She's been flirting with team leader James. She. James? Mark cut him off with a frown, not even sparing him a glance. Why did you bring her here? James calmly explained the situation. Handle it according to company policy, Mark ordered coldly. Don't bother me with such trivial matters in the future. Yes, sir. James nodded. Greg stammered. And no, I don't have free time. Then leave, James said curtly. He motioned for everyone else to get out. One by one, they filed out. Mark's gaze lingered on me. You stay. The room emptied, silence filling the air. I braced myself for punishment. Instead, Mark placed a cup of bubble tea in my hands. Good work, he said. I tried to focus on my work, really I did, but my eyes kept drifting toward Mark. The man sitting across the office, stern, cold, and utterly unapproachable, was somehow invading my thoughts more than my online boyfriend ever did. Every time he spoke to someone, I watched his expressions, his gestures, his subtle mannerisms. Could it really be him? Or was I imagining things? It started small. A smirk that made my stomach flutter. A faint twitch of his lips when he read a report, almost like he was suppressing amusement. And then, the memes. One day, as I passed his office to deliver a file, his computer screen caught my eye. A cat meme, the exact style my boyfriend always sent. My heart skipped. I shook my head, trying to ground myself. No, that's impossible. Just coincidence. People send memes all the time. Yet, when he looked up from his desk and our eyes met, a strange familiarity hit me, like déjà vu in its most intense form. My pulse quickened. I found myself standing near the coffee machine, pretending to pour water, while stealing glances at him. The way he sipped his coffee, the faint crease of his brow when he thought deeply. My mind screamed that it was him. And yet, my logic fought back. The CEO of this massive company? My online sweetheart? No way. Still, every subtle hint pulled me deeper into doubt. Could my charming, playful boyfriend and this ruthless, perfectly composed Mark actually be the same person? I took a shaky breath and tried to shake off the spiraling thoughts. But the truth was I couldn't. Everything about him, the way he moved, the quiet confidence, the faint warmth he occasionally let slip through, was eerily familiar. My heart, stubborn and foolish, refused to listen to reason. Then came the small moments I couldn't ignore. A stray post-it note left on a colleague's desk with a doodle that looked suspiciously like the little sketches my boyfriend made. A casual remark he muttered in a meeting that mirrored one of our private jokes online. My pulse raced every time, my mind torn between excitement and fear. I tried to act normal, to focus on the mountain of reports and spreadsheets in front of me. But my eyes betrayed me. I kept glancing at him, hoping for another sign, another clue that would either confirm my suspicions or completely dispel them. At lunch, I found myself wandering near the office kitchen again, as if by accident. Mark was there, reading a document, the corners of his mouth twitching upward ever so slightly. I froze. My pulse was pounding in my ears. Was it my imagination, or was that a smile meant only for me? I shook my head, trying to clear the fog in my thoughts. No, don't think like that. You're imagining things. He's your boss, nothing more. And yet, I couldn't shake it. Every glance, every subtle gesture, every meme or sketch, chipped away at my rational mind. It was impossible, and yet my heart refused to let go of the possibility. I sighed, tugging my cardigan tighter around me, trying to ground myself in the mundane act of stirring my coffee. One thing was clear. My heart didn't care about logic. It had already made its decision, whether my mind agreed or not. By the end of the day, I found myself at my desk, staring at my phone, hesitating. Should I text him? Should I ask the impossible question, or would that shatter everything? My fingers hovered over the screen, heart racing, mind spinning. Somewhere between hope and fear, I realized I was walking a tightrope. One misstep, and the delicate balance between my work, my personal life, and the man I was slowly discovering could be one, and the same would come crashing down. And yet the thrill, the possibility, the forbidden excitement, made my pulse quicken. I was in too deep already. I had no choice but to continue, one careful step at a time. The next morning, the office felt different. I had been promoted, yes, but the weight of everyone's eyes on me made me feel exposed, like a small animal under a predator's gaze. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to remind me that I was no longer invisible. Greg, predictably, was first to make his move. He didn't approach me directly. He was clever enough to avoid outright confrontation, but I noticed the way he lingered near my desk, whispering to colleagues with a smug smile that made my skin crawl. I caught fragments of his words. She only got lucky, wait and see. I clenched my fists, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. But it was hard to ignore the subtle ways he undermined me. A file misplaced. A question thrown at me during a meeting designed to make me stumble. I could feel the team, two members watching, some curious, some skeptical.
They didn't know me.
They didn't know my work ethic, my late nights, or the countless hours I had spent mastering every detail of this project. All they had was Greg's whispers, Mark's distant gaze, and me, the new girl suddenly thrust into a spotlight I hadn't asked for. Mark, as always, seemed calm. He didn't intervene overtly. He never shouted down Greg or scolded the team in front of everyone. But I could sense his presence, quiet and watchful, like a shadow that never left my side. Every time Greg tried to corner me with an impossible question or a sly remark, I caught Mark's eyes across the room, cold, calculating, and just enough to remind Greg that he wasn't untouchable. It was subtle, but it worked. Greg would falter for a moment, his smirk disappearing, and I'd take a careful breath, steady myself, and answer the question, finishing with confidence. Some of the team, two members nodded at me after these moments, a flicker of respect in their eyes. Others remained unreadable, their loyalty uncertain, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. I realized I was walking a tightrope, not just with Greg, but with everyone around me. By the end of the day, I had learned two things. First, office politics were ruthless, subtle, and everywhere. Second, I was in far deeper than I had ever imagined. As I packed up my things, Greg lingered by the door, pretending to tie his shoe. "Be careful, Olivia," he said softly, almost sweetly. "Some people aren't as forgiving as me." I smiled, careful not to betray my nerves. "Thanks for the advice," I said lightly, though my stomach churned. Walking past Mark's office on my way out, I paused for a second, catching his gaze through the glass. He gave nothing away, a faint nod, a subtle lift of his eyebrows, but somehow it was enough. I felt both reassured and reminded of how much I didn't yet understand about the balance of power here. Outside, I let out a long breath. The city buzzed around me, unaware of the silent battles being fought in a high-rise office above. My promotion had been a victory, yes, but it came with a cost, the knowledge that every step I took would be watched, judged, and tested. I tucked my bag under my arm and muttered under my breath, half to myself, half as a promise. I'll prove them all wrong. Even Greg. I was trying to review the latest data reports at my desk, but my phone kept buzzing insistently. My thumb hovered over the screen as I typed a quick message to my boyfriend, careful not to attract attention. "Can't wait for bubble tea tonight. Miss you already." I smiled softly, imagining his playful reply. Just as I hit send, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Olivia?" I turned sharply, heart racing, to see Kevin from Team 2 hovering there, awkward and wide-eyed.
Oh.
My face flushed red as I realized my phone had been slightly tilted, the screen visible to him. My messages, my emojis, my playful nickname for him, all on display. Kevin cleared his throat, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "I just noticed your phone. That's cute, I guess." I fumbled for a response, suddenly aware of the entire office like it was watching me. Thanks, it's nothing. Just a friend. I tried to slide my phone into my bag, praying no one else had glimpsed the screen. But of course, news in offices traveled fast. By mid-afternoon, hushed whispers began circling. I caught fragments as I passed colleagues. Is she dating someone in the company? I think it's the CEO. My stomach sank. Panic set in, my mind spinning. I tried to focus on work, forcing myself to answer questions, contribute in meetings, and maintain professionalism. But the whispers followed me everywhere, like a shadow I couldn't escape. Then, just as I was about to lose hope, I felt a calm presence beside me. I looked up and saw Mark standing silently, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Everything all right? He asked, his tone smooth, controlled, but carrying that familiar weight that made my chest tighten. I think someone might have seen my messages, I admitted quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for anyone to. Mark raised a hand, cutting me off.
Relax.
I already know. My eyes widened, my heart skipping a beat. You do. He nodded slightly, his gaze steady. And I trust you. Don't let office gossip distract you from your work. Handle it discreetly, as always. Discreetly? My mind screamed. How could I possibly keep this from exploding when everyone had already started speculating? And yet, his calm confidence and subtle command made me feel a strange reassurance, like I wasn't entirely alone in this. I nodded, trying to steady my racing heart. I'll manage, I whispered. Mark gave nothing more away, just a faint, knowing glance before turning and walking back to his office. I watched him go, 1,000 questions swirling in my mind. Could he really be? And if he was, how long had he known? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Every glance from a colleague felt loaded, every whispered conversation a potential threat. And yet, every time I thought of Mark, the way he had stepped in so calmly, his eyes carrying unspoken words, I felt a flicker of hope. By the time I left the office, my mind was a storm of anxiety and excitement. My heart knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just an office promotion or a casual romance. The two worlds were colliding, and there was no turning back. The moment I stepped into Team 2's workspace, I realized just how intense this project would be. Large screens displayed complex graphs, sticky notes littered every wall, and the hum of rapid typing filled the room. I felt like I'd walked into a battlefield, but this time, my weapon was my own skills. Mark's instructions were cryptic, as usual. Olivia, focus on the predictive models. Don't just analyze, anticipate. Think ahead. I blinked, unsure at first. Anticipate? Think ahead? That could mean anything in this data-heavy project. But as I glanced at the figures, patterns started to emerge. Lines of code, graphs, and reports suddenly connected in a way that made sense. My pulse quickened. I realized I could handle this if I stayed focused. Hours passed in a blur of calculations, cross-checking datasets, and refining models. Every so often, I caught Mark watching me from across the room. He didn't say a word, didn't intervene, but the faint twitch of his lips or the way his gaze lingered reminded me I wasn't invisible. Greg, of course, tried to sneak in a comment during a team check-in. Are you sure Olivia can handle that segment? It's complicated. I didn't rise to the bait. Instead, I focused. When the results were finally presented, the room went quiet. Graphs and projections aligned perfectly with the predictive trends Mark had emphasized, trends no one else had anticipated. Mark leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. For a terrifying second, I thought he might say nothing. Then a slow, approving nod. Impressive, he said. Well done, Olivia. That's exactly the approach I wanted. Relief and pride surged through me. The team, too, seemed to finally recognize my capabilities. A few members gave tentative smiles, a nod of respect, and even Greg looked momentarily flustered. As I returned to my desk that evening, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and froze. So, you survived your first real challenge without burning the office down. Coffee after work. My cheeks heated instantly. It was casual, innocent on the surface, but the tone, the familiarity, the way he knew exactly how I'd feel, it made my heart race. I typed back quickly, my fingers trembling slightly. Survived, but barely. Coffee sounds perfect. You'll need to explain how you make it seem so easy. A reply came almost instantly. It's a secret. I'll reveal it over bubble tea. I laughed softly, my nerves finally easing. The day had been brutal, exhausting, and high stakes, but somehow it had ended with the thrill of connection, the flutter of excitement I couldn't ignore. Mark had pushed me to my limits, tested my abilities, and somehow, amidst all the tension, reminded me that he was always there, watching, guiding, teasing, and maybe caring. As I shut my laptop and gathered my things, I realized that Team 2 wasn't just a challenge. It was the first step into a world where work, rivalry, and something far more complicated were intertwined. The office was quiet that morning, the hum of computers and soft tapping of keyboards filling the air. I tried to concentrate on the project files open on my screen, but my mind kept wandering, pulled toward the strange coincidences I couldn't explain. It started with the memes. A small, silly image appeared on Mark's screen during a team meeting, a cat tangled in yarn, with a caption that made my heart skip. The style, the humor, the timing, it was exactly how my boyfriend sent them. I stared, frozen, hoping no one noticed my reaction. Then came the little habits. The way he absent-mindedly tapped his pen in a rhythm that matched my boyfriend's text notifications. The slight tilt of his head when reading something that amused him. Every detail was familiar, every gesture echoing the man I had been talking to online for months. I tried to convince myself it was impossible. It's just coincidence. You're imagining patterns. You're reading too much into normal office behavior. But my heart wouldn't listen. It leapt, it raced, it hoped. All day, I caught small hints. A phrase he muttered during a meeting that was an inside joke between us online. A doodle on a notepad left by his side that looked eerily familiar. My hands trembled slightly as I made notes for the project, my mind simultaneously trying to focus and unravel the puzzle in front of me. I debated whether I should confront him directly. Ask him? Test him? The thought made my chest tighten with both fear and excitement. But what if I was wrong? What if I accused him and it shattered everything, the professional respect, the online connection, everything I had worked for? By the time I returned to my desk after lunch, my nerves were frayed. Then I noticed something that made my breath catch. A small post-it note had been placed neatly on my keyboard. I picked it up, heart hammering, and read the simple message scrawled in familiar handwriting. Don't work too hard today, my little star. My fingers froze. That pet name, my boyfriend had never shared it online with anyone else. Never. I looked around, half expecting someone to be watching. The office seemed normal, indifferent, but my heart was pounding as if I'd just discovered a secret doorway to another world. Could it really be him? Could Mark, the cold, composed, untouchable CEO, truly be the same sweet, playful man I had fallen for online? I sank into my chair, holding the post-it in my hand, every fiber of me torn between disbelief, fear, and an impossible thrill. My pulse raced, my mind spun, and yet, I couldn't stop smiling. Some secrets were too close to the surface now, and I knew it wouldn't be long before everything collided, heart, work, and the truth about the man I thought I knew. The office felt colder than usual that evening, though the heating was working perfectly. The dim glow of desk lamps cast long shadows across Team 2's workspace, and the soft hum of computers was the only sound besides the occasional rustle of papers. I was double-checking the final dataset for our project, my eyes scanning numbers until they blurred. Mark stood across the room, silently reviewing the same charts, his presence close enough that I could feel the faint warmth radiating from him. A sudden jolt made my elbow brush against his hand as I reached for a pen. I froze, our fingers grazing for a split second. A spark shot at my arm, and I quickly looked away, pretending nothing had happened. Careful, Mark murmured, voice low, but with a subtle teasing edge. We can't afford mistakes at this hour. I nodded, heart racing, trying to focus. The professional reprimand grounded me, yet I couldn't ignore the flutter that lingered in my chest. Meanwhile, Greg was busy scheming in the background. I caught a whispered conversation between him and one of the junior staff, clearly aimed at setting me up for HR scrutiny. A misfiled report here, a subtly suggestive comment there. He was determined to make me look incompetent or inappropriate. I clenched my fists but stayed calm. Not today, Greg. Not here. Mark, without saying a word, subtly intervened. He leaned over a colleague's shoulder to redirect a question, shifted files back into order before anyone noticed, and when Greg's smirk tried to creep into my line of sight, Mark's eyes caught his, a silent warning that made Greg freeze. It was infuriating and comforting all at once. Infuriating because I couldn't confront Greg directly without risking escalation, comforting because Mark was quietly shielding me from his schemes. Hours later, when most of the office had cleared out, I stayed behind to finalize the presentation slides. Mark remained, sitting across from me, quietly reviewing notes. A soft silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the rhythmic tapping of keys. At one point, as I reached for a binder, our hands brushed again, deliberately this time. I wasn't sure. My pulse raced, and I caught a glimpse of his gaze, just long enough to make my breath hitch before he looked back at his notes. It was maddening. One moment, he was the untouchable CEO, all cold professionalism. The next, the teasing, attentive man who seemed to notice every little detail about me, both in and out of the office. By the time I packed up to leave, my mind was spinning. Greg's sabotage had been neutralized, my work intact, and yet my thoughts kept returning to Mark, how he had silently watched over me, intervened without fanfare, and made me feel protected. I realized, finally, that he wasn't just paying attention to the project. He was paying attention to me. Every glance, every subtle gesture, every quiet act of protection had been for me, and I hadn't even fully noticed it until now. Outside the office, I exhaled deeply, running a hand through my hair. The line between professional and personal had never felt so thin, and I knew that navigating it would be both thrilling and dangerous. But one thing was clear. Mark was far more attentive to me than I had ever imagined, and I wasn't sure whether to be terrified, excited, or both. I stared at the post-it note on my desk again, my hands trembling slightly. "Don't work too hard today, my little star." It wasn't just the words. They were unmistakable. The way the letters curled, the subtle flourish at the end, it was him. My heart thudded violently. Could it really be Mark? The cold, commanding CEO who could silence a room with a glance, the man who expected perfection and never tolerated weakness. Could he actually be the same playful, warm, affectionate person I had been texting online for months? I glanced up at him across the office, pretending to adjust my documents. He was reviewing slides, completely professional, yet something in the tilt of his head, the faint curve of his lips, made my chest tighten. My mind raced. Could I risk asking him directly? Could I even survive hearing the truth if it was yes? The moment came unexpectedly. I was gathering files for the afternoon briefing when he approached my desk, hand brushing lightly against mine as he reached for a folder. My fingers tingled at the touch, and I looked up to meet his gaze. "Olivia," he said, voice low and smooth, carrying that same warmth I knew from our messages. "Do you have a minute?" I nodded, words failing me. My pulse hammered in my ears. He didn't ask about work first. He didn't give a lecture or critique. He simply leaned slightly closer, just enough that the faint scent of his cologne, subtle, crisp, familiar, made my head spin. "You've been doing exceptionally well," he continued, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "And I appreciate the way you handle things. You're smart, capable, and more than I expected." My breath caught. The praise alone was enough to make my knees weak, but it wasn't what had my heart racing. It was the tone. The words carefully chosen to remain professional, yet impossibly intimate. I started, then stopped, unsure if I dared speak the truth. Could I really ask? Could I even confront him, in case I was imagining it? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small post-it. My stomach twisted when I recognized his handwriting instantly. A doodle of a tiny cat, and beneath it, a nickname that I had only ever shared with my online boyfriend. My heart skipped. There was no doubt. It was him. Mark's eyes softened slightly as he watched me read it, but he didn't say a word. Just that quiet, knowing look, part challenge, part reassurance. The air between us was electric, every unspoken word pressing against the boundaries of professionalism. I swallowed hard, my mind spinning with disbelief, fear, and an undeniable desire. One wrong move and the entire office could unravel our secret, yet every fiber of me wanted to reach out, to close the distance, to finally confirm the impossible truth. Mark straightened, smoothing his jacket, returning to his usual composed demeanor. "We'll discuss the presentation in a few minutes," he said lightly, but the glance he gave me as he turned told me everything I needed to know. As I sat there, heart racing and hands shaking, I realized the truth. My online boyfriend was my boss. And Mark had been aware, quietly guiding me, testing me, protecting me all along. And yet, despite the fear of scandal, despite the impossibility of it all, a thrill ran through me, sharp and intoxicating. The secret hung between us, heavy and unspoken, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. For a heartbeat, we simply sat across from each other, office lights dimmed, the rest of the world forgotten. My pulse hammered in my chest, my mind teetering on the edge of disbelief and desire, and in that charged silence, I understood one thing. Everything had changed. The following week felt like walking a tightrope. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands, every quiet exchange between Mark and me carried weight. We had to maintain professionalism, yet the undercurrent of something far more dangerous, exciting, buzzed between us like electricity. Team 2 was in overdrive. Deadlines loomed, clients demanded updates, and every spreadsheet, graph, and slide had to be flawless. I tried to focus, but I couldn't stop noticing the small ways Mark watched me. The brief lift of his eyebrows when I solved a problem, the way his gaze lingered just a little longer than necessary, the subtle nod when I presented something he knew was crucial. Other team members began to notice, too. Whispers floated past my desk. "Did you see the way he looked at Olivia? They're definitely close." I flushed every time, forcing myself to concentrate on the data in front of me. But it was impossible to ignore the ripple of jealousy that Greg and a few others tried to stir, sly comments or snide questions aimed to throw me off. Greg had clearly escalated his efforts. He tried misdirecting me in meetings, questioning my analysis in ways that seemed casual but were meant to undermine my confidence. I caught him once smirking as if he thought I'd fail spectacularly. But every time he tried, Mark subtly intervened, never overtly, just enough to shield me. A slight shift in his posture, a word redirected to the group, a glance that made Greg falter. It was infuriating and thrilling all at once. Mark's quiet protectiveness left me both reassured and dizzy. I was starting to understand that he had been paying attention to me long before I realized it, watching for the moment I would step up and prove myself. Late one evening, the office mostly empty, Mark stayed behind to review final slides with me. I could feel the tension tighten, a heady mix of exhaustion and anticipation. As I passed him a printout, our fingers brushed again. The spark that shot on my arm was undeniable. I caught his eyes, trying to read his expression, but he gave nothing away, just that faint, knowing look that made my pulse race. "I think we're ready for the client presentation tomorrow," he said softly, voice low enough that only I could hear. There was a warmth in it, a subtle closeness I had only felt with my online boyfriend. My mind raced. Could I really be imagining this? Or had the lines between professional and personal already blurred beyond recognition? As I packed my things to leave, I realized how deeply I was already entangled. My admiration for him as a boss, my growing reliance on his guidance, and the undeniable pull of our shared secret, it all collided in a swirl of emotions I couldn't contain. Outside, the night air was cool, calming my frayed nerves. And yet, my thoughts kept returning to him, to the way he had been subtly guiding, protecting, teasing, and captivating me. I was falling for my boss, my boyfriend, the man who had managed to conquer both my heart and my professional respect. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. No matter the complications, the office gossip, the impossible situation, I couldn't deny it anymore. I wanted him. I needed him. And the whirlwind we were caught in was only beginning.